We're just going to get back started. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you for coming back from lunch and not snoozing out on the balcony. So we will now hear from Superintendent Danielle Emerton, who is the new superintendent of the Domestic Violence Team, which is also known as the Domestic Violence Registry, and Detective Inspector Jane Pryor. So Superintendent Danielle Emerton, APM, commenced her policing career in New South Wales Police Force in 1994. She has completed a Bachelor of Secondary Education with honours at Sydney University, a Bachelor of Policing degree, a Diploma of Management and a Graduate Certificate in Applied Management. In 2004, she was Assistant to the Commissioner Ken Moroney's Chief of Staff, and she was involved in the Redfern riots as part of the Sydney District Operational Support Group and was part of the Incident Response Group for the Maroubra riots. In 2014, she attained the rank of Inspector, performing tactical duties at Burwood and Northern Beaches Police Area Commands. During 2017 and 18, she was Staff Officer for 2 Southwest Met Region Commanders, and from 2016 to 21, she relieved extensively as Police Area Commander in all 3 metropolitan regions. Superintendent Emerton delivered the iLead Women's Development Program and the Human Rights Discovery Tool, which are currently contributing to significant development and advancement of officers within New South Wales Police Force. From 2021 to 23, she was the Commander of Auburn Police Area Command, and in January 23, Superintendent Emerton was awarded the Australian Police Medal for her policing service, and in April 23, she was appointed the role of Commander of Domestic and Family Violence Registry. We also have Jane Pryor, and I don't have Jane's bio, but you will all know her very, very well from within Fairfield PAC, Bankstown PAC. Bankstown PAC, my apologies, DVO, and now working in the domestic violence space for a number of years. So I'd like to invite them both to the stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'd first just like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land throughout New South Wales, and their continuing connection to country, land, sea and sky, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here today. So thank you very much for introducing me. I'll introduce myself in a little bit more detail, and then I'll also hand over to Jane to introduce herself. So I am the newly appointed Commander of the Domestic and Family Violence Registry for the New South Wales Police. I've been in this New South Wales Police for 30 years, and I actually joined with Paula Smith down there, the EE Commissioner, so it's really nice to see a familiar face in the audience. I've, like I said, been in this police for 30 years. I did a Bachelor of Education before I joined, so I did a little bit of teaching. I have 2 kids in their 20s. One's just finished a degree and one's is just finished his electrical trade. I joined the police because I did want to make a difference, and I have been an operational police officer for most of my career. While I was having kids, I was in the educational space, but then returned as a general duties officer, attending domestic violence incidences, then moving up to sergeant and attending as the supervisor at domestic violence incidences, adjudicating AVOs, going to court, and then became a duty officer for 8 years in some pretty busy Sydney-based commands. And then I've just recently done 2 years as the commander of Auburn Police Area Command. As you know, is a highly multicultural and challenging area, but absolutely loved it. But here I am, the Domestic and Family Violence Commander. I'm in week 3, the beginning of week 3, so that's why I've brought Jane along, because she is the subject matter expert at this stage. I'm like my brain is like a sponge over the last couple of weeks, the amount of things that I've learnt. And it's interesting to see how it's all come about, and because I've been putting a lot of this stuff into practice, or attempting to, because I'll be the first one to be able to tell you that the New South Wales Police isn't a perfect organisation, as you probably all believe, your own organisations can do with some sort of improvement. this all came about, the registry, because in 2021 the Attorney General did an audit, and as a result of that audit, Commissioner Karen Webb took on the recommendations and made a commitment that in January 2023, this year, that the Domestic and Family Violence Registry would be up and running. And that was also based on feedback from many of your organisations, including our community as well. So I thank you for everything, for your input, and I think that we're only going to get better based on the strong partnerships that we have. I went to 8 meetings yesterday, so it's just meeting after meeting, but I'm getting to know a lot of the industry subject matter experts, so it's a very exciting time. Just by way of background, the New South Wales Police respond to, on average, 140,000 calls for assistance from police, and that equates to 1 call for assistance for a domestic violence incident every 4 minutes. So yes, the police do respond to a lot of domestic violence incidences, and as far as misidentification, there are times where police can get it wrong. However, with the introduction of a lot of our new training that we're going to go into more detail about in a minute, I think that we're closer to getting it as correct as we can. We talk about our bias training, and with the young police, we do face-to-face lectures with subject matter experts for them to recognise any biases they may hold. We also talk about changes in legislation, technology, ways of communicating. It's all part of developing our first responders and also giving the community a better chance of being able to communicate with us as well. Interpretation. We've got ACLOs, we have MECLOs who have all done domestic violence training, and we've got new tools of the trade with our body-worn video. We've introduced new technology such as Good Sam, which we can go into a little bit more detail about. Empower You, there's an Empower You app. So this is trying to give to the community a little bit more of that independent insight and get them to help us as the investigators of crime. So, there we are. Maybe I ought to point it. So this is our new symbol. This is the wolf. It's a mythical creature, and it's the hunter that hunts the hunters. It's a wolf that hunts the people who that are going to injure people in villages and that sort of thing. So it's called Amarok, and I think it's a really important and strong symbol, and it's here for us to, become really serious with offenders and to try and stop the domestic violence offending as best we can. So the Commissioner has considered domestic violence as one of our priorities, an absolute priority in the New South Wales Police. It's a Tier 1 priority, so she has allocated Deputy Commissioner Mal Lanyon from Metro Field. He's our corporate sponsor, and Assistant Commissioner Stuart Smith, who's the corporate owner of Domestic and Family Violence. Together, they have put together a Domestic and Family Violence Registry, as I've mentioned, as I'm the commander, and Jane is the manager. So I'm just going to introduce Jane. She can introduce herself, and then we'll get on with our presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. My name is Jane Prime. I'm the manager of the Domestic and Family Violence Registry. I was the manager of the Domestic and Family Violence team within the Crime Prevention Command, but as ma'am has said, that we are now moving forward to our own command because the Commissioner sees it as one of her top priorities. And it's been signed off, and the command is in the recruitment stage, and we have our wonderful commander who is leading and driving the organisational change for New South Wales Police when we're responding to domestic family violence, which is led by Deputy Commissioner Mal Lanyon and Assistant Commissioner Stuart Smith. My name is Jane, and I have a practitioner's background in domestic violence. I spent 13 years as a detective senior constable investigating all matters of child abuse. At the end of my career in child abuse, I did all the child homicides and the serious and severe areas of child abuse. Now, when you investigate child abuse, you understand the demographics and the manipulation of victims. And in my case, one of my last matters, I spent about 12 months investigating a man who not only did he have domestic violence within his intimate relationship with his wife, but he also had 6 children victims. And as a result of that, he manipulated them to the point that they thought they were the offenders. And very, very, very sad, they never came forward to police until they thought it was time to come and tell us their story. When they did tell us their story, I remember sitting there and as I said, I'd done about 10 years already in child abuse at that time, and I sat there and went, oh my goodness, I think this girl is not telling me the truth. I think she's just read 50 Shades of Grey and is just making things up. Lo and behold, I took that bias away from my mind, and as the commander said, we all have biases. It's the way we manage them, control them, and the way that we investigate those biases to make us a better police officer. As a result, I investigated this girl's story, and every single part of her 4-hour interview I was able to corroborate, investigate at the highest level where I had an informant in jail. That was also giving me information. I had covert devices off as well. And as a result, the gentleman that was accused of those crimes against those 6 children is now serving 35 years jail, the highest sentence in a child abuse matter for a very long time. So I understand the complexities of family violence. From there, that was the last case that I had, that I said to myself, I need to move on. And I moved on to domestic violence, where I became a sergeant at Bankstown. And then I learned and grew with that community in domestic violence, and it taught me a lot. From there, I did a few other bits and pieces before coming into the registry. So, for my background, I can sincerely concur with your thoughts and the sector's ideas about we need to get it right as a police force. And my job will be to support Ma'am Emerton to make sure that we get it right as a registry. So I hand back to Ma'am to go through our presentation.
So, as I mentioned, in April 2022, the Audit Office of New South Wales released a report to the Parliament detailing their review and response to the domestic and family violence, and there were numerous recommendations that we have responded to. And how are police addressing misidentification? Jane, I think you were going to do this slide, but I'll pass over. Yeah. No point in me trying to pretend that I'm not all over this.
Thanks, ma'am. I think it's a good team that we've got going on, so we might just work together because ma'am has a whole lot of operational experience, and I think that from the partnership that we're going to have together, we're going to grow through that partnership with the practical knowledge and experience and with ma'am's operational knowledge as well. How do we address misidentification? And that's why we're here today as a police force, is because we understand that sometimes we do get it wrong. As ma'am said, we're responding to 1 matter in every 4 minutes, 140,000 per year. 38,000 ABOs are taken out on average per year. So how do we do it right? First of all, we need to listen. And as a police force, and in my time as the manager, we've had forums where we've had you come and tell us some of those areas that you believe that we need to improve upon. And the one thing that we did do, we did listen. And we now are starting to put those things in place. Hence why there's a registry that's being developed. And we're just recruiting, as we said. Some of the other things, training. Training and upskilling of our staff is the #1 priority for us. And how do we do that for misidentification? Well, we did have misidentification as a module on one of our fundamental training. Now, fundamental training is for constables who are recently attested from the New South Wales Police Academy from 1 to 5 years. So between they sort of are tested, and before they get their senior constable rank of 5 years, they've got to do fundamental training for DV. And what we did have was Misidentification was an online module. So when we came into RAIN, we need to change that, because we see the importance of misidentification, and we see the importance for officers getting it right on the street and giving them the best tools that they can to develop their skills in investigating. So we've taken it out of an online module and we've made it face-to-face. So we've got subject matter experts that will deliver this package. The package goes anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, and in that package we have a real life case scenario we go through, and the officers it challenges them, makes them think. Then we have people that come in and talk about the investigation techniques that we need to employ when we're out on the street. Because I know I've been to domestics, and Man would have as well. When you go there and you don't know what's happened, the victim's not telling you what's happened. You can see that she's got some marks on her. You can see there's damage within the home. You can also see marks on the offender, but no one's telling you what's happened. And we, under our legislations, we have to take action. So that's how we end up with cross AVOs, and we know that they're a big pain. We understand that. And as a police officer, we don't need to take out dual AVOs. It doesn't serve a purpose for anyone. But that's how these things do happen. So we're trying to stamp that out by education and training. And the other good thing about in education and training is making that a face-to-face lecture, that their officers are able to ask questions. They're able to challenge some of those things in the case scenario so that they can have a full understanding of what's going on within that. So that's one of the big things. It's just happened this year. The fundamentals course was trialled in 2 locations, one here in the metro area and then one in Goulburn in the regional area. So they've just signed off and said, yes, we like that package, and it's now going to be fully functioning within the New South Wales Police under the Education and Training Command, with our command, being the DFV Registry, providing the content and the updates in relation to how we think it should look. And you've got experts around the table now trying to drive that training. And the lead educator at Education and Training was my 2IC at Bankstown. So she has been in the role as a DVO for about 12 years. She understands the complexities, and we will work together to make sure we get this training correct. So that's the face-to-face. And the module is called Correct Identification of Victims and Primary Aggressors Through Evidence Collection. We challenge the evidence that's been collected. We try and upskill our officers to make sure that they are investigating the matter fully. And in the case scenario, it was interesting, Natasha ran us through it this morning, was the fact that they've got an injured dog who's at the vet, because the offender, when they went to the case, or when they've gone to the scene, they couldn't tell what's happened. And the offender, who is male, is telling us that the victim was suffering from mental health. How many times have we heard that? That manipulation of the offender saying, she's crazy, she's made it all up, and I haven't done anything wrong, I'm a victim here. So that's the case scenario, a small part of it. But there's an interesting aspect where the dog is at the vet's. And so we're asking those officers to think outside the square and contact the vet, get a statement from the vet, ask why the dog is at the vet. Has it been assaulted? Who brought the dog to the vets? All those type of areas. Looking at the 000 calls, canvassing neighbours, talking to the kids. We all think as officers sometimes when there's kids at a scene that we can't talk to them. Yes, we can. 3 simple words: tell me what happened, then tell me more. We've all got body-worn cameras on now, which is a great piece of technology that the New South Wales Police Force has introduced. So we have these advancements that are coming. We are upskilling through investigative techniques, and that is something that the registry is going to continue to do. We, as part of the staffing, have employed, or going to employ, hopefully soon, a training coordinator and a training assist in our own command, which is absolutely fantastic. We're going to have 2 investigators. We're going to have sergeants that are responsible for connecting into our regional areas and our metro areas to see what the pain points are, to look at the functionality of the regions and help with our high-risk perpetrators. That's for a whole nother discussion. Technology enhancements. As Man was saying, we've got Good SAMs coming. We can't talk a lot about it because it's under procurement at the moment. However, but it is a piece of technology that is going to assist us in our investigating, especially in domestic violence. And we are going to trial 2 areas very shortly. But that's something that we just can't discuss, but it is still happening. And these are the things that we're putting into place to make sure that we get it right. We've also got enhancements to web cops. Some of you have seen some of my presentations before, and we know that the New South Wales Police Force, our DV officers, are spending more time putting the event on in the station. It's about 4.5 hours than responding to the domestic that's occurred. So we're trying to switch that around. We want our officers to spend more time at the scene, talking to the victim and investigating. So we are doing a massive technology change, and that is underway at the moment, where we're going to have our officers fully mobile and they don't need to go back to the station to input all the data. AVOs will be done at the scene, and the supervisor can verify them when they're at the scene. Brilliant piece of technology for police and for our victims, and they can be served straight away, and they can be served via text and email and lots of stuff. So that's coming. We also have the Empower You app, which is about to be launched, and that Man was talking about. And we've consulted with our external agencies, and we've received their feedback, and we've made some changes, and that's going to be released back out into the DV sector shortly. So that is a piece of technology which gives the victim the power to record in their own words, in their own time, what's happened to them in their incident. You know, because sometimes we all know it takes about 26 occurrences for a victim to feel safe enough to walk into a police station. But sometimes they're at home, they've got their mobile phone, or they've got a piece of technology. They may want to record these things. So we've made it a lot easier. We've also made it fully functional so they can connect into services and get that support that they need. So watch this space. There's more information on that coming, and that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. Cultural safety, we've got just an area, we've got our ACLOs and MECLOs trained in DV, and I know that the MECLOs, there's about 54 of them across the state. They've all been trained in DV, and they're going to have ongoing training because they're the front line to our culture in community that will assist our police. And Mam said we've got an increasing workforce that has English as their second language now. So we do have that cultural piece back into community that's listening and can understand some of those areas for us. We've got a steady increase in cultural and linguistic diverse employees. And I know that in the southwest it's been, I think it's about a 13% increase, which is fantastic. We've got bespoke training by the DFE registry, which is us. As I said, we do have a training coordinator, and they're going to be responsible for designing and developing all of our training and pushing it through to our Education and Training Command. We also have bespoke training where we might identify an issue, say for example in Grafton, and they've got a training issue up there. We will then attend that police station and speak to them and give them that subject matter expertise, help their officers understand the complexities of DV and how to investigate it to their fullest. So that is what our functionality is going to be. One of the other functionalities we've got, I didn't mention, was the Q&A sergeant. So that Q&A sergeant will be responsible for quality assuring all that work that's coming in. And our other sergeants who are designed for the region and metro areas will be reviewing all the sit reps and all another layer to reviewing to make sure we're getting it right. And if we don't get it right and we think there's something wrong within that information, we'll be leaning back into that command and offering our assistance and our expertise. And also in 2020, I don't know how many of you knew, we did a full survey of our DV response in New South Wales Police, where every general duties officer or any officer involved in domestic violence had their chance to have their say to tell us what's wrong, and they did. We had a really great response in relation to that survey, which is shaping the way that we're designing our reform project and how we're designing the way that we change our practices within the force. I'm having the same issues, ma'am. Okay. Some of the courses that are currently under our framework, we have the Domestic and Family Violence Fundamental course. As I said, that's for our officers from 1 year to 5 years worth of service, and it's mandatory. They must do this training. We've got the Domestic Violence Officers course, so anyone that works in the DV space, like I did when I was at Bankstown, we must do this course as well. We have about 26-minute SMITs. They're those really quick, snappy trainings that we have at our start of shifts or end of shifts, and they can be used by any commands, and we have a whole range of things. But what we have, the 20 most pinpointed areas where we believe where we must improve. There's a lot in relation to AVOs, firearms legislations, powers of entries, powers of arrest. All those things that we know through the courts where we fall down sometimes, we reiterate that back into our PACs and PDs. We also have desktop exercises in relation to DV. So say, for example, a command is having an issue in their area and we can't get up there immediately, we can do a desktop exercise with our education and training, and we can link into all different experts. We run the Adult Sexual Violence Investigations course, which focuses heavily on domestic violence as well. Under construction, this has been something that we've wanted for a long time, is a high-risk offender team course. So the next level of investigating. So we're designing that at the moment. And that's going to be for our high-risk offender teams, but it's also going to be for our DV team leaders that in each PAC and PD. So it upskills them to that next level, that critical thinking about how am I going to respond and investigate a domestic violence incident. Because sometimes we go in with blinkers on. It might be their third or fourth domestic they responded to that night shift or that day shift, and we go in with blinkers. But sometimes we've got to challenge ourselves and take us outside the box. We need to give our officers the tools to do that. We also have covert techniques that we need to embrace and share that and upskill all of our officers that we can do certain things to make sure we find out who that primary aggressor is. Next bit. Coercive control training. Did you want to speak to this or? Okay, so coercive control training, I know that's coming. We all know that legislation's in place in 2024. How are we responding? I think what's really relevant for today and for this forum is about phase 2, what we're about to roll out. So phase 1, what we've done, because we've already done it, and that was, what is coercive control? Why now? What is coercive control and what does it look like? Now, who needs to be trained in the force? Everyone. Whether you're a serving police officer, you're a civilian at the front desk, you're a commissioner, deputy commissioner, everyone must do this training. And it was rolled out in March 2023, and we must have all of our entirety of our force trained by June 2023. Massive ask. And it's well underway, and the training has been really well received. It has an active case study in it, and it really explains it in simple terms. And one of the ideas that we had when we developed this training, I was part of it, was I wanted to make sure that when a victim walks into a police station and says those things, those triggers of coercive control, they don't get turned away and get told to go to court and either get their own AVO out or we can't do anything because it's a civil matter. I'm sure that people online and people in front of me as a service, you know that those things have happened. And I'm sure that you've all got stories you can tell me about police that have done that. I can see some nods from the audience, yes. We understand, we know, I know it happens. So what do we do to change it? That's what we do, we educate. And we make sure that everyone does this training. And I think it's really user-friendly. Everyone that's done it has absolutely complimented us on the functionality of it and the usability of it, because I wanted to make sure that no woman was turned away, or man. And the other thing is to also understand that it is a crime. That even though coercive control is not, the legislation's not in yet, we can still charge with stalk, intimidate, harassment. And we don't want these victims turned away from the front counter. So then we move into phase 2. Phase 2, what is it? Coercive control in practice, coercive control investigation, coercive control in court, and coercive control in community. Who's going to be trained here? Well, there's another 12,000 that we've got to train on top of phase 1. So the 12,000 we've got to do by June 2020. We've got to start in June 2023 and have it completed by June 2024. We're going to be road tripping a lot because we've got to do it face to face. And the big thing is to get in front of our DVOs, get in front of our GD's officers, in front of our specialists who are in court, our prosecutors and our detectives. And we need to let them know of all the things that they need to understand about coercive control so they can investigate it, and then we can do what's best for the victim that's reporting it and put it through the judicial system. We don't want it to fail, because we do know from studies overseas that the rate of conviction has been poor. We want to give our victims the best chance at court through coercive control, and we understand that training is the key. Phase 2, on Thursday, Mam and I have a sit down and we're starting the development of phase 2. It's already planned, it's already mapped, but now the practical sense. So our team is actively involved in providing the content of what happens in phase 2. And we need to connect in with our DV sector, because we know that there's subject matter experts out in the sector that do this and know a lot more than us. So we need to connect in and make sure we get this right. So we will be reaching out. And then phase 3 is a blended program, and that's a blend of phase 1 and 2, and that's going to be for officers post-2024 moving forward. What does that look like long term for the officers that haven't been encapsulated in training of 2023 and 2024? So that's what that is about. And questions? I think we might be done too. Our time is...
Yeah, we're over time.
Sorry, over time. I'll hand back to
That's
Mam.
very fine. We can be flexible. We'll start up here.
Hi, that was really good. My name's Stephanie Smith. I'm from DVSM. I was just wondering, the training is great, but what comes before the training is culture. How do you think the culture of the New South Wales Police Force is, and what is occurring within the police force to actively impact on misogyny and patriarchy?
And what was the last bit? And misogyny
Patriarchy.
Matriarchy. I guess I can speak from a commander's point of view, having just come from Auburn PAC, and there was 100, and I had 165 staff. As far as you were talking about culture, I think it was about 25% of our officers English was their second language, so they came from multicultural backgrounds, and it was celebrated in the command. We had Gallipoli Mosque in our area, which was the largest mosque in the Southern Hemisphere. We had, a MECLO in the command, and that stands for Multicultural Liaison Officer, who was very in touch with the community. I guess as far as misogyny, it's not tolerated as far as between staff at all. We've got legislation that doesn't tolerate that. And we also have a complaint process that, people could come anonymously direct to myself, or they could go externally and it would come back to me to complain about any sexual harassment or discrimination in the workforce. So that to me extends out to the community as well. We had a complaint process out in the community as well, that if they ever experienced anything from our command, any of our officers, they could complain and action would be taken swiftly. So you know, like I've said, I've been in the job for a long time, and I've never felt bullied, harassed. I've always felt equal to my male counterparts, and you know, that goes to show something, because I've worked in many work environments and with different levels of police, and so yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's getting better as well. I mean, community in general is more tolerant these days, and we're dealing with a lot younger police that are coming straight from school, and they don't have the biases that, you know, when 30 years ago people had, and it's not tolerated. So, and that is, we've got GLOWs, gay and lesbian liaison officers in the stations. We've got, you know, promotion of the celebration of almost every day, every specific day. We've got, we're trying to promote the employment of Aboriginal officers. I think at this stage we've got about just over 3.5% in New South Wales, which isn't amazing, but we're trying to get more on board. So I don't know, does that answer your question? Jane, did you want to? Right, okay.
I do just have a couple of questions online. One of them is, I can understand that misidentification can happen simply because police are human. When community services have alerted police to a clear misidentification, can you please explain what is behind the general reluctance to withdraw inappropriate applications for orders? This is also a well-documented problem in Queensland, Victoria and Tasmania.
Do you want to answer that one, Jane?
Yeah, thank you. Bridget, sorry, I didn't hear all of that. Could you just read it again to me?
I can understand that misidentification can happen simply because police are human. When community services have alerted police to a clear misidentification, can you please explain what is behind the general reluctance to withdraw inappropriate applications for orders? This is also a well-documented problem in Queensland, Victoria and Tasmania.
So we're talking about AVOs, or we're talking about other sort of orders, family law court orders, or?
AVOs and charges,
Okay.
I believe is what's... Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's quite a complex answer, and something that we can take online and come back to you on. I would like also to refer to our prosecutions command as well for some of the answers, because the prosecutors are the ones who withdraw matters at court. The DVOs and the GDs do give their opinions about withdrawing matters. However, it does come down to the prosecutor and the evidence that's put towards them. So can I take that on notice and come back to you on the answer once I confer with our prosecutors?
Absolutely, thank you.
Hi there, thank you very much for the presentation. The training looks very interesting and very detailed. But one of the things we also know is that police have had a lot of training, often around misidentification, primary aggressor and so on before. So I'm just wondering what you might have in place to evaluate the effectiveness of this training and what's going to happen post phase 3.
Good question. Yeah. Do you know? Yeah.
In relation to our fundamentals training and our DVO courses, they are constantly evaluated. And as a result of the evaluations, that's when we upskill and we change content. So the fundamentals predominantly was 19 modules online with half a day face-to-face. So then when I came into the team and looked at the training and with experience, I went and I pushed up and said, I think we need to change our processes here and put the emphasis back into face-to-face training, because that is what our officers are wanting. They want to hear from subject matter experts. So a lot of the modules that we took out was that was training, it was misidentification, it was investigation, it was talking to children, it was those things that people need to hear face to face. They need to have that real life experience explained to them. And some of the legislations and things like that, the stuff they've already learnt, has went into module training. So we are constantly changing our training to adapt it to the needs of the organisation based upon your feedback. Also, we had I think some of you were at, was a forum in late or early 2022 about our police training, and we took questions from the floor and we got feedback from the sector that we needed to change the way that we trained our police. And that is one of the biggest things. And I was at that forum, I was brand new to the team, and I took a lot of that feedback back, took it back through education and training, and that's why the changes happened. Now, in relation to coercive control training and post-2023, that is being developed as we speak, and those parameters are being put in place as we speak. We're in the very, very early stages of it. So there's something that we can take into consideration and we will take on board and look at that evaluation process moving forward. So thank you for your question.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Yep.
Do you ever do independent evaluation? I mean, I agree, internal and content evaluation is absolutely critical.
Yep.
But is there ever an outside independent evaluation too?
Look, at this stage, this is something People and Capability Command, which is education training, will need to, they take the lead on training and education, and we can push this back through to them on our discussions I'm having on Thursday, and Mam's having with them on Thursday, so definitely take that back on board. But we also do have evaluations in form of when we do have our sectors come in and do our trainings with us. So the Crime Prevention Officers course, we have a panel of experts that come in, and that course I designed when I was in the crime prevention space. That process is about DV, elder abuse, child abuse, domestic violence, all those areas, and working not in silos anymore. We need to break that down and within the force. We need to work collaborative against all areas of the police. So in a police station, for example, I'm getting off track, but I'm going to get to my point, that we need to make sure that alcohol and licensing, that our youth liaison, our ACLOs, our MECLOs, our DVOs, we're all working to look at that early intervention and what those early causes are for family and domestic violence, and then that social behaviour and those social skills of the kids growing up and all that other things. So we do have people from this sector coming in constantly giving us feedback in relation to trainings by sitting on these panels and giving us our feedback, just like we're going to do for coercive control as well. So we're going to have some experts come on. So Jane, watch this space.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Danielle. I work for a DV CAS service in which we receive all the referrals from police. I don't want to state which one I work at because I really don't want to ruffle any feathers. But even the fear in talking about it now, I couldn't imagine what our clients have to go through, especially when we're advocating for them. Now, we were recently told that when we receive referrals, or there is a number and no answers, so we'll inquire about, if there's any other contact details. We were recently advised that we are not to do that anymore because they don't have capacity. So how, I suppose, what would you recommend in the sense of addressing that? Because as and it's quite intimidating.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruffle feathers. I don't want to make things worse for my clients and my colleagues. So, how could that be addressed?
Absolutely valid question. And I'm going to take myself back to being the DV sergeant at Bankstown, and when my LCP would ring me, I'd go, "Hello, Yellow Pages," because I knew they were ringing me to get contact details. And I know how important it is to give those contact details out so you can do your job. We need you to do your job because sometimes the victim doesn't tell us on the night what they've gone through. They don't do the DV sat with us. They might do it with you 24 to 48 hours later. We understand that. So what I need from you is you to tell me where you're from, offline, and let me delicately address it for you, because that is what we're here to do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we want to make sure that victim is safe, and the only way that we can do that is for you to tell us, not dib-a-dob or anything like that, or ruffle feathers. I understand it. But I too, at Bankstown, I used to process 400 DVs a month. And yes, there was probably about 300 of them that didn't have the phone numbers. But moving forward, because I was a victim of that, I'm going to fix that through our technology. So that may not happen for very much longer. Okay?
Great.
So, but offline,
Good
tell
to
me where
hear.
you're from. Or Giles down the back, who's from the organisation. If we've gone, just tell Giles where you're from.
All right. Thank
What
you
about
so
the
much.
Empower You app that has the services listed?
We're going well over time, but do you mind if we do 2 more questions? And then any other questions we'll direct to that inbox, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Now I know there were like 5 hands around here.
Hi, I'm a criminal solicitor at the Women's Homelessness Prevention Service. We've heard a lot today about the gendered nature of violence, and I was just wondering if there's a place for that in your training and if there's a place for that in police response to domestic violence, recognising that men are the predominant aggressors.
I only got a little bit. Did you say gender-based violence? Is that what you
Yeah, do you educate police on the gendered nature of violence in the training? And is there a place for that in police responses?
And did you say that you thought that men were the general aggressors?
Yeah.
Sorry, we can hardly hear up here.
Sorry, the predominant aggressors of coercive control and more serious forms of domestic violence.
Yeah, well, in answer to your question, we do that, and that is covered in this coercive control, this new package in phase 1, and it will go into more detail in phase 2 as well. But I think just, as police, the more and more they attend jobs, they'll learn. It's hard for us to have a bias of, say, oh, the man is the primary aggressor. If you gave the police that education, then again, we'd be doing the wrong thing. But I think, we're trying to teach police. We're investigators. We investigate criminal offences, and we've got to come in with, an open mind to every job that we go to, and go based on facts and evidence and independent witnesses and that type of thing of, what we've just mentioned. So, but yeah, it is definitely a consideration.
And we also have packages in relation to same-sex couples and all those areas as well. So it is covered off on extensively in training.
We can do one more, or I can go to the 2 questions that we have online that bleed into it. Oh, no. Come in, Gavin.
Hi. Just when you've spoken about getting experts in the field to inform your training, how do you evaluate those experts? There's a lot of people saying they're experts, and I've been around for over 20 odd years, and some of them are not experts.
Yeah, good point. You answer that one because
Yeah.
you've been so involved. I keep referring back to Jane because I've been in this job for 2 weeks as far as packages and the education, so I'm not even going to try to answer some of these questions knowing that you would have a much better answer.
Sorry, that actually bleeds into one of the other questions, which is exactly kind of that. Can you tell us who you're using as subject matter experts? Are they internal to the New South Wales Police Force, or are sector experts engaged? So it's a similar question.
Yeah, thank you. We are in the process of doing all of that at the moment for coercive control phase 2. We're at the moment just sourcing, researching not only us, but also our education and training command as well, who have dedicated researchers and subject matter experts in their field looking and are going to approach. Now, there's something I can't really release at this time because we haven't approached who we're thinking at the moment and our research. So, but what I can tell you is there will be people within this room that we would like to approach.
Thank you so very much. We will cut it off there well over time. And what I will say to everybody online and in the room, please flick your questions to that email if that's okay. Yes. Great. Or to me, and I will flick them on. And I would like to say thank you so much for your time and sharing all of that with us. I know that we're all really excited to see the outcomes of the audit, and we know how hard you've been working over the last year on the new registry, and we're so excited to work with you on it. And thank you so much for your time.